What's up, folks? Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast. Friday, January 25th, sometime in the afternoon. Here we are. We only have a handful of days left in the first month of the year. It's crazy. Christmas was 1 month ago. We are still awaiting LeBron James making his way back to the court. Isn't it crazy that it was a month ago that he went out with that groin injury and we saw it happen and we all kind of felt it looked extra bad? And then all of the feedback afterwards was like, oh, we dodged a bullet. Oh, we got over it. Everyone is optimistic about what happened. And I think if they had said it that day that he would still be out 1 month later, 15 games later, we would have felt that that was pretty bad. I don't know about dodging any bullet there, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's interesting to wonder what's going on with it. Why was there such a weird mismatch of information going on out there? Why did he think he was very optimistic? I mean, I guess it's more optimistic than missing a whole season. There's no doubt about that, but I don't know. This feels pretty dire. The Lakers, I believe, are only 25-24 at this point. I don't even think they're in the playoffs if they were to start today. That is a really scary development because LeBron turned 34 at the end of December. He'll be 35 next year, obviously. Anyone can do the math as I talk that through, but you don't know about injuries when they happen, what it means. You just don't know how they affect what we had taken for granted about a player as he ages, as he's not able to be on the court at that high level for a full month. It's going to be interesting to see when he actually does come back. I'm not 100% sure, but will they be out at that point? Because I think we're seeing that his supporting cast is not as great as was maybe prognosticated to be. And that's a little damning because he left to go there. He wanted to go to LA. That's totally fine. I get it. I want to go to LA. Who doesn't want to go living in LA where you can have two beautiful mansions and your kids can go to school and they can find their way in the world of life and basketball and be in a great position to be seen. You can have your happiness sort of like a retirement while you're living. I mean, a retirement while you're working. And he can still do great things. He's had, when he was in there this year, he was playing as well as he's ever played. But it's funny because I was looking at his numbers, and especially as it relates to Carmelo Anthony, who is the same age as LeBron. I think he's, 34 as well. And you just feel like he's been sort of not a player in the league in years. And he's sort of become an afterthought. And again, he's only 34. He's the same age as LeBron, who we expect to do great things for many years to come. We'll see if that happens. But there's actually a discussion now that Carmelo Anthony's salary was traded to Chicago. How about the fact that he's got jerseys for Chicago and jerseys for Atlanta? Obviously, they probably weren't made other than as a joke, but he's got jerseys to those two locations as well as the Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder from last year. He's got all these jerseys around, and two of those places he hasn't even played a moment in. At least Rasheed Wallace played one game in Atlanta until he was traded to that fateful destination of Detroit, which really rehabilitated his entire career and showed the great player he could be in the league. We always knew Rasheed could be great, but he was volatile, and that volatility caused consternation about whether he was a player who could be on your team and you could trust him. Much like we talk about Draymond Green, although Rasheed was a lot better than Draymond Green. And that's not to knock him down. That's just to say that's how great Sheed was. Because Draymond's shot has really gone to crap. Not sure what happened there. I just think back to that fateful Game 7 when Golden State ultimately lost, after being up 3-1 against the Cavaliers. And I remember in that Game 7, Draymond was coming to play. He hit a lot of threes. He was confident, and he's lost that ability. He's not even being guarded at the three-point line anymore. But Sheed could hit the threes. Sheed was a tremendous player from the low post, from the high post, passing, intellect, basketball smarts, rebounding, defense. I mean, he was just a tremendous player. That said, I'm going back to Carmelo here. Carmelo Anthony reminds me a lot of Allen Iverson. Their career was played mostly in a city. Carmelo was in Denver to start things. Then they moved for a time to a second city, Carmelo had a longer period of time in New York, probably half and half, right? I mean, was it that many? I'm not sure if it was as many seasons in one as the other, but at least when it comes to mind, you think it does. And Allen Iverson had that nice long career as a main player, as the main guy in Philadelphia, and then he went to Denver for a time. Then he ended up going to Detroit in a trade where Chauncey Billups came the other way back to Denver, I believe his hometown. I believe it was his second stop there as well after having a stop there earlier in his career. And Chauncey helped Carmelo get to a Western Conference championship. And it was a tremendous run, and it was great. But you think of Carmelo and the analogy to Allen Iverson. So at one point, they reached a place where they were not seen as a starter. They were not seen as the focal point of an offense, and they didn't seem to be able to handle that news. You remember that much like Carmelo going to Houston this year, it did not last long. What did it last, 10 games? Reminded me a lot when Allen Iverson went to another Western Conference team when he went to the Memphis Grizzlies, and I don't even think that lasted 3 games before he was gone. They were both 34 at this point where the flame out is occurring. Allen Iverson was able to finish it out in Philadelphia, if you remember that. I remember watching the NBA League Pass when he had his return. I don't remember any other games from that season, but I do remember the return, and it was something to watch. Now you wonder, will Carmelo get that chance? I don't know. There is talk that maybe at this point, maybe closer to the trade deadline, that he will go to the Lakers and play alongside LeBron James. But I'll tell you what, if he couldn't play alongside James Harden, Chris Paul, if he couldn't play alongside Paul George and Russell Westbrook, if he couldn't play along even when you go back some with Kristaps Porzingis. Now, I think he kind of could. I think he was able to do that. I really do believe that the trade from the Knicks to Oklahoma City was a good faith trade. It was a chance to let him play on a winner, and it was probably a pretty fair trade when you think of it. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying he couldn't play with Kristaps. I mean, they did seem to have some continuity together. But man, since that point, once he got to the Western Conference, he's really kind of been exposed. And he was a Western Conference player for all those years. But some players just have a certain amount of miles you can put on them, just like cars. Some cars start going at 125,000. Some will be ridden all the way till 300, 400,000. You have that person you know who still has that car from 20 years ago. I think back to, Alfred Morris, who was on the Cowboys, and he was on the Redskins, and now he's on the, I think he was most recently with San Francisco. But I remember watching it was either Hard Knocks or the Amazon Prime All or Nothing show, and he still has the car from like the late 90s that he had. He still drives it and has a ridiculous amount of miles. So there are cars that can have the miles, but Carmelo does not seem to be that. It's funny, his name starts with car, right? But he does not seem to have the same miles, because it brings back to what I was saying with LeBron James. LeBron has played around 55,000 total NBA minutes. 55,000. There's very few players who have played more. I think when I've done the math in the past, it was like, what's his name? Karl Malone was there, and obviously Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was there, who played forever. And I need to look at that again, but it was like that rarefied air. And LeBron is there. 55,000 total minutes. You look at Carmelo, same age, 34. He's only played 40,000 total minutes. Now, that in a normal career is a lot of minutes. I'm not saying it to begrudge that. I'm just saying the fact that LeBron has put on 15,000 more minutes in a career at the same age, basically the same amount of NBA seasons. Carmelo played the 1 year at Syracuse, winning a national championship there. That national championship, plus the gold medal he got with the Olympic team, will probably be the things that help raise him up to be an NBA Hall of Famer, even though the NBA Hall of Fame isn't quite as important as it is in baseball. But that's an important delineation to be an NBA Hall of Famer, or basketball Hall of Famer from the career, the basketball in totality. So he had that championship in college on his back. He did everything for that championship, and he did quite a bit for the USA championship, the world championship, the gold medal. But he's been elusive with the NBA championship. Can't get it. And they've built teams around him, and he just isn't quite good enough to get there. Much like the other players in his class, when you think of Dwayne Wade, was good enough to get there. He did need Shaq's help, but he took it home in 2006. He always has 2006, where he did it on his own back. He rode the team. He did everything. LeBron needed Wade to win. LeBron upstaged Wade and Chris Bosh at some point, where it was obvious he was head and shoulders above the other two, and he was carrying. And then obviously when he got to Cleveland and he got that championship, he carried that thing with the help of Kyrie Irving, but as the main player. Carmelo, as the main player, has not shown the propensity to get to the final round and to win a finals. He can get you 50-win teams, 55-win teams. He could get you into a first, second round of a playoff. With Chauncey, he was able to get into the third round of the playoffs. But beyond that, he doesn't seem to have the capacity to do it. Now, James Harden has not shown quite the capacity to do that either. He starts to flame out when you get to the playoffs. Now, this has been another story this year, what he's been doing on the court. It's been absolutely absurd what he's been doing on the court. The scoring is making him someone you have to watch. We all knew he was a great player, but it wasn't a guy on League Pass you had to watch every night. He's doing things now that you have to watch him every night, much like Russell Westbrook did a couple of years ago as well with his triple-doubles. What Harden's doing is absurd. He can carry a team, and it's very much why I thought LeBron should have gone to Houston, played alongside Chris Paul, played alongside James Harden, and all the pieces they have around them, which would have been lessened by LeBron going there. I'm not sure how the money would have worked, but when there's a will, there's a way. You figure it out. You figure out a way to do it. They did it at the ages of 25 and 26 when they went to Miami. They all figured out a way how to split the pie there. I know all the contracts were starting at the same time, so it was a little easier, but you do it when you have the impetus to do it, you do it. And that's why I thought it would have been good there, because he wouldn't have had to put the team on his back, that Laker team on his back, the way he has this year. This has been too much. It's too much to put on him. He'll take it and he'll do it because it's the only way he knows how to win with this, but it's asking too much. If he's playing alongside Harden, alongside Paul, you can stagger who's dominating the ball at any one time. I go, you go, we go, you know, they can just go person to person, and they can really have a multi-dimensional offense. I mean, it would just be something else to watch. And they're all sort of at an age, much like that Celtics team that brought together Paul Pierce and Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. They were all at a point where they were ready to win. Those three guys, Paul, James, Harden, are at a time where they're ready to win too. With Harden being the youngest at that point at 29, that would have much of the same feeling as that. And I think he missed a chance to continue to be at a championship level. I don't know if he's going to find that with the Lakers, both because I don't know if they're going to get the resources, the players in place to do it in time, to align with how much of his prime is still quite left, because he's going to be the main focal player no matter where he is. And especially in this Lakers situation with the money, the cap, the amount of the cap he's making, it's always going to be him. And you don't want to be around an aging diva. Not saying he's a diva. He's a tremendous player, seems like a tremendous teammate, and he is a tremendous talent. But as his skills start to diminish, as the explosiveness starts to diminish, you have to hope that the brain game raises up to match it. And it will, but it's going to be a hard seesaw there as they try to figure out who they can put around him in enough time before the ticking time bomb goes off. So, really looking at those LeBron minutes, he has played 3 full extra seasons in postseason minutes played. 3 extra seasons. So you look at a guy who came out of high school, 18 years old, and what is it, year 16, year 17? You have to sort of add 3 more seasons to that. So he's in like year 20 when you count all the playoff minutes he's put in. And in a row, there's been no break for 8 years. He's gotten to that round every year. And before that, he was getting to the second, third round and to the finals in 2007 as well. But it's a guy with a lot of minutes and no breaks. And sometimes the body gives out at times where you're not expecting it to. So, it's crazy. The Carmelo, the Allen Iverson feel, they got a real feel, and they used to have the same haircut with the cornrows, right? It's interesting. And it's funny the way Allen Iverson and Carmelo intersected at that point where they thought you could put the two of them together and that maybe they could be the piece that puts them over the top. And it was never quite to be. Carmelo's always been not just enough. He's great in these workout videos with his hoodie, and he was a tremendous player in his prime. I mean, he was a scorer non-pareil. I mean, he was a scorer who could light it up, and you couldn't stop him. Mid-range, three, to the basket, to the free throw line. Just a tremendous scoring talent. But he seems to have withered away explosively and athletically as the years have gone on. And here he is at 34, which is not amazingly old. But this is a player who came out after 1 year. So you're counting 2 to 3 seasons that were not 30-40 game seasons like you play in college, but went right to 82 games. So, if it didn't work out in the last year with all the players he was able to play alongside, I'm not sure going to LeBron helps it. Now, I know LeBron had dinner with him in New York City when the Lakers came to play the Nets, I believe, and they went to a nice dinner at a steakhouse, Italian steakhouse or something in Midtown. And so they probably talked a lot about that. But we'll see it on the court. I think that he's lost a lot. And I kind of compared him to Eli Manning, where when you see Eli Manning play as a fan who's watched him all these years, you see the glimpses, and the glimpses make you think the hole is there. Because you see the piece, you see the throw, you see the perfect route, you see him doing what he's always done. It makes you think he can still do it, but you don't know where the drop-off is. Is he able to do it at the same consistency that he did it all those years ago? It's hard to tell when they're still able to pull it out. It's hard to tell when Carmelo's still able to put up 25 points in a game, showing you the mid-range, showing you the three, showing you the free throw line, getting to the hoop. When he can still do it, it makes you think he can still do it regularly. But he was doing it every night before, and now maybe he can do it 1 out of 4 or 5 nights. And is that enough to bring a player in? I don't know. Couple other things. I'm running down the clock here myself on being a single child parent. The next baby's coming in the next month. The due date is February 21st, but my wife is looking real big. Sorry, I had a little cough there. My wife's looking real big now, and this baby's already 8.5 pounds as of yesterday. So I think we're looking at something that's probably coming earlier than we think. And so it's coming anyway, so here it'll come, and here our lives will change. It's always a positive, but you never quite can quantify the unknown. So we'll see how our lives change inexorably, using that word. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see how things go, how it makes my wife and I better people, better parents, how this new child integrates into our current 3-person configuration, and getting back to probably less sleep. Although you have the worst thoughts ahead of what can happen, and oftentimes they don't come to pass. And even if they do, you still got to live through it. So what are you going to do about it? But we're excited, and it's going to be really something to look forward to. It's one of those life events. What we've been doing lately, my wife and I, in the time before she falls asleep early, we've been watching a lot of The Good Fight. I love this show. I think it's so good. It is the spin-off of The Good Wife, which featured Juliana Margulies. She is not in The Good Fight, but it's the same world. It's the same characters. Many of the same characters who were in The Good Wife. It's still Chicago law. And she is out of the picture, though, completely in this show. And this show is only available on CBS All Access, which is the over-the-top streaming platform of CBS. You need to pay at least $5 a month to get it. If you don't want commercials, it's $10 or $11 a month. I'm on some deal because I tried to cancel it from the no commercials, and they gave it to me for 2 more months at $4.99. So we're trying to clear through the 2 seasons of the show that are on there before that promotion is up, and then I'll cancel again. It's a great show. It's such a good show that it's worth getting CBS All Access to try to binge through it. Just so well done. It's got great acting performances. It brings in a little bit of an African-American quotient, because what happens is the one of the main partners, Diane Lockhart from The Good Wife, some things happen where she's pushed out of her job at the firm that she worked at and was a founder in and a named partner in, where Juliana Margulies had worked too. Something happens where she's pushed out in shame in many ways, and she locks up with these or hooks up with this other firm, predominantly African-American firm, and she's able to be a named partner there, but it just brings in all these new aspects, all this new life to look at. And one of the main characters, the main partner, is a character, Bozeman, and he's played by Delroy Lindo. Delroy Lindo is a face. When you look it up, you'll know who I'm talking about. I find this guy to be such a tremendous actor, and I never know why he wasn't in more things. Is he a stage actor? Is he this? I don't know. But I've seen him in a couple of things. I remember there was a show called Chicago Code, and he was an alderman in that show. This guy owns the screen, and I don't know why he hasn't done more. I've seen him in a couple of things here or there, but never the high-level things. And even this show is a high-level great show, but it's on CBS All Access. So how many people are really watching it? But I can't stop watching this show. Tremendous law stuff, tremendous storylines, the personal stuff. It's got some Ponzi scheme action. It's just a very mature, good show. And the funny thing is, it's got the same feel as The Good Wife, but since it's on this over-the-top service, there is cursing up and down the show. So weird to see the amount of cursing there is on this platform that you used to be watching on CBS. So that's been kind of cool. It's like if Good Wife were on HBO. Very good show. The other thing that came out, the Oscar nominations. So I'm always excited with the Oscar nominations. I'm going to open up our nominations here. I was also on the Ernest Christian, his Unfiltered podcast last night. We did a lot of talking about much of the same subject matter. So if you want to check that out, I would. It's a good appearance. We always have nice long conversations. But I obviously each year do the Oscar podcast with Tim Castano and my cousin-in-law, Jamie Alfano Mulhern. I can't do that because of the Alfano Mulhern. It's tough to tie the two together, a little tongue twister, but we do our annual Oscar podcast, and due to that, you're really focused on when the nominations come out. So they did come out the other day on the 22nd, and I'm excited because I've seen a bunch of them already. I bet on myself well on what movies to watch. You know, there's sites you can look at where they kind of handicap which movies are going to be in the discussion, so you can pretty much have a good feeling on what you want to see. The only one that did not make the Oscars and that was in discussion to be in some potential placement for the Oscars was the movie 8th Grade. I'm glad I saw that movie, just like I saw Gleason, the documentary several years ago that did not make it into the Oscars, but was kind of in the discussion as maybe being there. I was happy to have seen that because that is one of those things that you're the better for having seen it. And if you had waited till nomination time and didn't see it, you probably wouldn't see it because you're trying to clear through the movies in the nomination. This year, the movie was 8th Grade. This movie was great. It's about, obviously from the name, it's about an 8th grade class, the last week of 8th grade before they go to high school. And it follows a main character who's a girl who kind of has her own YouTube show, and she can't really fit in with anyone. She's awkward. She thinks she's in control almost with her self-help YouTube videos, but it's that feel. It's that uncertainty of being an 8th grader, going from one place where you're at the top of the mountain in 8th grade to now going back to the bottom of the mountain in high school, and just the awkwardness and trying to be with the opposite sex and what that does, and just really interesting movie. The girl in it is tremendous in the role. I don't think she's been in a lot of other things at all. And this movie was directed by Bo Burnham, who's like a 26, maybe 27-year-old now, a YouTube star. And this was his first movie, and he did a great job. The father in the movie of the girl is very good. And it just takes you back to the awkwardness of being in school. It truly does, because it gives you that feeling of maybe what you had, that inferiority complex that many of us do have. Because how many kids really have confidence at that stage? But it makes you feel a little vulnerable. It was nice to be taken back to that. And I enjoyed it. And the other cool thing, the movie's shot in Suffern, New York, which is one town north of the town I grew up in for much of my life, Mahwah, New Jersey. So Mahwah's on the New Jersey side, and then right over the New York side is Suffern. So it was shot at Suffern High School. Many of the outside scenes were on streets in Suffern. So that was really kind of a neat, that was a really neat thing to kind of look at as well. I'm just trying to open up something here. So I did get to see that. I would recommend it. It's on Amazon Prime. So most of us have Amazon Prime, so you could see it on Prime Video without having to put up any more money. Just a nice movie to watch. We got Black Panther is a Best Picture finalist. Love that movie. I just knew it was something more when I was watching it. I'm not a huge Marvel guy or a comic book movie guy or comic book guy, but this was a true movie. This was a tremendous movie in its own right. The lessons, the messages in it, I thought were tremendous. Then we got Black Klansman, which is Spike Lee's movie. I do need to still see that. And I know it is streaming for rent on Amazon. The site I found this year for streaming the movies, quote unquote, illegally, movieninja.io. That's a pretty good site I found. Bohemian Rhapsody. Man, did I love that movie. Oh my God. I thought that movie was so good. Rami Malek was tremendous as Freddie Mercury. The people they got to play the other members of Queen were tremendous. Mike Myers as the record executive was tremendous, especially with the Bohemian Rhapsody, him trying to turn it down. And then we know what he did as his own director in Wayne's World and bringing that song. I mean, for many of us, that brought that song into the forefront was what they were doing in that car while they were listening to Bohemian Rhapsody. That made that song current. I mean, it was a huge deal with that song, much like the movie Lady Bird brought Dave Matthews back in such an important way. But I thought Bohemian Rhapsody was so good. It gave me chills sometimes. A lot of people said maybe it's not a Best Picture. I just know that when I watched it, I felt good. I thought it was a tremendous movie. The Favorite, I still have to see. The producer in that, Yorgos Lanthimos, did a movie I liked, The Lobster. That didn't make it really into any Oscar things years ago, but it was a weirdly cool movie, a weird surrealist world. Colin Farrell seems to be the guy who's in a lot of his movies. Green Book, I still got to see that one as well. Very interesting with Green Book. It's a drama, dramatic screenplay. But Peter Farrelly is the person behind it. The same guy, one of the brothers, the Farrelly brothers, who did just a murderer's row of comedic movies from like the 90s. So we're talking Kingpin, and There's Something About Mary, and Me, Myself, and Irene, and Shallow Hal, and what's the other one? The is it Step Brothers or something? Not Step Brothers, but he did so many of these iconic movies that I loved growing up. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the dramatic movie in Green Book. Then we got Roma, which is the black and white movie about 1970s Mexico City, Alfonso Cuarón. It's kind of a favorite at this point to win, and it's a Netflix original, which is a story unto itself. Then we have A Star is Born. I saw that. I liked it to a point. I thought Bradley Cooper had his moments. I thought Lady Gaga had her moments, but it felt a little inconsistent to me, and it felt very not authentic about what would actually happen in that role. It almost had a Disney-fied feel to it. Good though. I like the rock and roll live crowd aspect of two movies in this Best Picture when you're thinking of Bohemian Rhapsody and A Star is Born, but a nice movie. It's fine. Good acting performances. Very telling that Bradley Cooper was not a Best Director though. A Best Director nominee. Very interesting. Because you're in so many of the discussions when you're talking about actor, actress, Best Picture, and then to not be in Best Director, I don't know, weird. Vice, I loved Vice. I really loved it. The story behind Dick Cheney, written by another kind of comedic come drama guy when you're thinking of Adam McKay. I really enjoyed that movie. It was a little strange. It was a little, some people thought, inconsistent with its tone. But I just enjoyed it. I really did. I enjoyed the history. I enjoyed the acting performances across the board. Sam Rockwell as George Bush was was unbelievable. So good. And I saw that movie at 9:50 in the morning on a Sunday. I was the only person in there at the time. And then right when it was starting, another older couple came in and sat in the back. So it was like seeing the movie myself. And I kept thinking, if I weren't there, if no one was there, does the movie still play? And then someone said, well, if someone comes 10 minutes late, then what are you going to do? So it can't be late, right? It's like a train. It's got to move to the next movie after. So I guess they would just play it. I guess they're just playing it to an empty theater. Kind of interesting. So we talked Best Director. As I said, Alfonso Cuarón for Roma. He did Gravity, which was such a cool movie. It's funny. Gravity was expansive. It was space. It was less actors. It was more sterile. And then you go to Roma and it's black and white. It's dirty. It's Mexico City. It's dog crap on the driveway. It's a lot of people. It's, It's very insular and tight. So it's kind of neat from a film perspective to see both ways of shooting. Then we got Spike Lee for BlacKkKlansman, Adam McKay for Vice, Powell Pawlikowski for Cold War. That's going to be one that I guess I have to see, but it's an international. Best Actress, Yalitza Aparicio for Roma. She was the main actress. She was not even an actress before, so it's kind of interesting to be here. Glenn Close for The Wife. I have to see that. Olivia Colman for The Favorite. Lady Gaga, A Star is Born. Melissa McCarthy for Can You Ever Forgive Me? Now, I think that's a serious movie, right? I think it's something with like detective work, so I need to see that one. I really don't know a lot about that movie. I tend to see the best pictures, the best actors, the best actress, the original screenplay, the adapted screenplays. I tend to see all of those, as well as supporting actor and actress. I try to see all of those movies first, and I try to completely see all of them. And then I get to the documentaries and some of the others if I can get there. But mostly I try to do this. And a lot of it is crossover, right? So you see one movie and it's got 3 or 4 nominations that you're knocking out there. Best Actor, we got Christian Bale for Vice, Bradley Cooper, Star is Born, Willem Dafoe. Here's another movie you need to see because of Willem Dafoe and At Eternity's Gate. I have no idea what that's about. Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Viggo Mortensen for Green Book. Having seen the movies I saw, I really think it's going to be Malek or Bale. And I don't know how they're going to decide that one because Bale was just phenomenal as Dick Cheney. But then again, Malek was amazing as Freddie Mercury. I loved both of those movies. Best Supporting, we have Amy Adams for Vice. She played Dick Cheney's wife. She was very good in that. Marina de Tavira, Roma. She was the mother. I think she's a famous Mexican actress too. Regina King, If Beale Street Could Talk. That's another movie by Barry Jenkins who did Moonlight. So you need to see that movie. I love how you say you need to see it. All these things end up being rewarding when they're the highest level of the art, but you still do look at it almost like something you need to do. Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz are both in The Favorite. They'll probably cancel each other out, I'm guessing. Best Supporting Actor, we have Mahershala Ali in Green Book. He was obviously the winner of Best Supporting Actor in Moonlight. Adam Driver in BlacKkKlansman. Sam Elliott, A Star is Born. Sam Elliott was good. He was the older brother of Jackson Maine, played by Bradley Cooper. Richard Grant, Can You Ever Forgive Me? And Sam Rockwell, the aforementioned George W. Bush in Vice. Best Original Screenplay. Now, the only one here that we didn't see discussed is First Reformed. This is a movie about a priest who kind of becomes played by Ethan Hawke, upstate New York priest, small Reformed church, small old white church, almost a tourist stop. And he plays a struggling, in his personal life, priest who almost becomes an eco-terrorist because of one of his parishioners who takes their own life and gets him radicalized a little bit. It was a weird movie. A lot of people, when you read about it, a lot of critics tell you that the movie is very important as a show of art. And it's those ones when it doesn't resonate with me outside of the art that I have a hard time almost appreciating as much. Like, I just want the movie to be good without having to read on it and understand why it was good. It should just be good to me. The movie was fine. It was shot well. It was shot quickly. I think it was shot in 20 days, $3.5 million budget. And the really interesting thing with it is the director is Paul Schrader. You don't know that name? He did Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and he did it like, kind of a murderer's row of a couple of movies like 30 years ago. And he's sort of done some things here or there, but not really out there. And then here he comes out with this First Reform movie. So that is also streaming on Amazon Prime. So it's free to you if you have Amazon Prime. So watch it. It's a good movie. Best Adapted Screenplay. The only one I didn't talk about here is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. So those are the Coen brothers. And that movie, I don't even know what it is. I got to watch it, but that's a Netflix original as well. So if you have Netflix, you can go watch that. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with a lot of this stuff. I'm not 100% sure. I know we talk a little bit about documentaries, right? So there's RBG, which is about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There's Free Solo, Hale County, This Evening, Minding the Gap of Fathers and Sons. A few of these are on different streaming services you might have if you want to look at those. I tend to get to those last, and with my time shrinking, becoming a parent for the second time, Not sure how I'm going to get there. In fact, I got to clear through some of these main movies. I've done a pretty good job, though, all things considered. So, we got a good month ahead of us. A lot of people look down on February. I like February because at the beginning you got the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is going to be fun when you got the Patriots playing the Rams again after many years, where the whole Patriots run started back in 2001, or would that be 2002, the year of 2002? Because, obviously the year rolls over, where it all started for the Patriots, the first championship in this run. And obviously the Rams were a different team from a different era, from a different city. Kurt Warner was their quarterback, and now they got Jared Goff. Their head coach was, what the heck was his name? That famous Dick Vermeil, right? I think it was Dick Vermeil before it became Martz. The old Dick Vermeil, and now the very young Sean McVay, going up against the eternal Bill Belichick. It's going to be a tremendous one. I had picked Chiefs versus Saints. I mean, that was a pretty safe pick, but I did feel it. I thought that was the one. And the Saints kind of fell apart a bit after being up 13-0. And they did get back. They were in a place to win, obviously, until that crazy pass interference thing wasn't called. But I still, in that moment, I felt good that wasn't called, because I don't want the game to end on that. When you're watching it in real time, it wasn't as stark as it was when you saw it slow. Yes, the letter of the law, it was absolutely pass interference, egregious, and helmet to helmet even. But I didn't want it to end there, and they still had their chances. And even with that, the Rams came back to win. And in the overtime, the Saints threw the interception. So they had their chances. And when you look over to what Kansas City did, it was inspired football. They have a great future. It's funny, though, because we always say these great futures, and then sometimes you have the cautionary tales where you look back and you laugh because a bunch of things fell apart. They fell on hard times. Someone got injured. It didn't end up being, like everyone looks to Dan Marino. Was it his first season or second season? He got to the Super Bowl and everyone said, "Oh, he'll be here all the time." Never got again. Not saying that's going to happen here, but they were inspired. They played really well. They did end up firing their defensive coordinator after what happened there, but they were down 14-0, and they came all the way back, and they made it a game. They gave everything they could to the Patriots, who just like a magnet seemed to always find a way to win, though. And I would not be surprised if they don't find a way to win in this Super Bowl. It would be an interesting coda to this run, and the coda's not over, because I imagine Belichick and Brady would still come back, certainly on a loss, but probably still even on a win. They just like coming to work and doing their job, as they say, and walking away from it probably doesn't quite intrigue them like it might others. So it'll be interesting to watch, but I think I'll have more to talk about on that as we go ahead. But I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see what happens here in terms of baby number 2, in terms of Oscar movies, in terms of NBA and LeBron and Carmelo, and in terms of the upcoming Super Bowl, because the teams will be arriving in Atlanta. We'll have our media row. We'll see all the interviews. We'll see what storylines take shape. We'll see what connections are happening between the teams, or beyond the obvious Super Bowl connections of the bookends between the first Super Bowl of this run for New England and this one. And something always appears, something always propagates. So you guys have a good weekend, though. All right? Thanks.